Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's City of Onkaparinga Council meeting for the 18th of February. And I'd just like to note that we have an apology this evening from Councillor Mick Fisher, who's unable to be with us tonight, and there are no leaves of absence. I'll invite all the elected members to stand and join with me and to recite our pledge. We recognise the city's considerable natural and cultural heritage, including thousands of years of traditional ownership by Ghana and the more recent contribution from people either born here or who have migrated here. As we meet together, we build on this heritage by respecting and listening to each other, thinking clearly, being receptive to new ideas, speaking honestly and deciding wisely for the current and future well-being of those we serve. Thank you, everyone. Welcome to the gallery this evening. It's good to have you here. Just a few reminders. There are some rules and regulations. It is our meeting and interjections won't be welcome, and you'll be reminded of that if that does happen. But we're really thrilled that you could all be with us this evening. First of all, I'd like to move the minutes. Do we have a mover, please? Councillor Eaton.
Yes, I'll move as written. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Platten.
Just a second.
Any questions? Debate? All those in favour? Motion's carried. Thank you. There is no leave of absence. The Mayor's report. Councillor Bell.
Thank you. I'm happy to move and I'd like to speak, if I may, too.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to highlight, as briefly was mentioned in the report, the drought that we're experiencing at the moment and the difficulty many of our community are having in accessing water. I know I myself in CANDOVER are looking to probably have to get water in June later this year, unless the rain comes sooner. But I particularly want to highlight this through an act of kindness by our council on the 30th of January, following a call I'd received from Mish Simpson on the 28th. And Mish is her husband run SCUR, Southern Koala Echidna Rescue, and she rang me about 10 to 5 literally, and she said, I'm really desperate for water. I can't get a hold of water. I can't get hold of a contractor to bring me water. We've got two 22,000 litre tanks and they're empty. We've got 25 koalas that we're trying to keep cool in the heat that they've been experiencing, obviously, but that's really been affecting all of us. And I just want to highlight and acknowledge the generosity of the council. I rang our CEO among the three that I answered, I called, and thank you to you and your staff. They were able to provide a truckload of probably 15 or 16,000 litres of water to SCUR to assist in ensuring they had enough water for the koalas. A range of other things occurred during that time, but I particularly wanted to highlight the generosity of the council, the CEO, Fu Yuang, Kirk Richardson, and the two staff from Onkaparinga, Cameron and Matt, who happened to be there when I turned up just by accident when they were delivering the water on the following 2 days. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor THEMELIOTIS, question or debate? Happy to second. Second, thank you very much. I put them up. Sorry, Councillor Drew, did you have a question?
I just wanted to mention, I don't know if it's worth it, but on Australia Day, I actually attended Moana Surf Life Saving Club as well, and it's not recorded.
Thank you for that amendment. We can include that. Councillor Yeomans, a question or debate?
Just a quick, I suppose debate if you like. I'm just acknowledging the piece of correspondence that's in there. It was directed some to the Minister for Housing and Urban Development, Minister for Infrastructure, Housing Infrastructure, Minister for Planning. It relates to the petition that the City of Onkaparinga prepared, advocating for SA Water to take ownership of the management of the community wastewater management system assets. The petition, as you can see in the correspondence, received a total of 827 signatures, and accordingly, Mayor Nathan closed the petition and respectfully requested the Minister table that in Parliament at the next available opportunity. So thanks for doing that.
Thank you very much. No further questions? I'd like to also note that as soon as we've passed this, I do want us to have a minute's silence, as you will see in the report. And I also just want to bring to your attention just a few words about Mark Mills, who's a 2023 Citizen of the Year, who sadly passed away suddenly on Sunday. And I know many of you will know him. I just wanted to bring that to your attention, as that's something that's happened very recently. But as we observe a minute's silence, as we will in a moment, once we've passed the Mayor's report, I do want just to direct you to that paragraph on page 11 about former elected member Artie Ferguson. Many of you will know him as the mouth from the south. And that's something that was more of a term of endearment than of derision by all his supporters and allies. And he was absolutely tireless and fearless in speaking to power. He certainly had a view about that. There'd be no original open market on Beach Road without him. And I did go to visit him just briefly before Christmas to see how he was going. And even though he was quite challenged by his physical situation, his brain was fully functioning, nothing wrong with his mouth. He was able to entertain the entire ward at Flinders Medical Centre, which gave him great care. And we had quite a long chat about all sorts of things, particularly the Hackam West Community Centre and his work as a councillor, first in NOARLUNGA and then the city of Onkaparinga. He really, his local government career spanned nearly 4 decades. So as we stand, I'll just ask for us to pass the report and then stand for a minute's silence. So all those in favour are carried, and we'll have a moment's silence. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. There are no presentations this evening. We do have a number of deputations, and I need to bring to the chamber your attention that I did refuse a deputation, and that has been communicated to Mr. Billington. It was in relation to a development application ID 230-33823, and I refused it on the grounds that delegations are an internal administrative matter for the council, and that was the reason I refused that. Okay, our first deputation in the evening is from the Onkaparinga Youth Committee, and there is a gaggle of them coming up. So if you'd like to find your way to the front, just to remind you that a deputation is 8 minutes, and you've got time to, you'll need to go around the other side, sorry. And you can share the time as you wish, and I look forward very much. Some of you have been here before, and I'll let you all introduce yourselves. If you could come up to the lectern, and we're really thrilled that you can be here. We appreciate all the work that you do as a youth committee and providing advice and guidance to us on many, many things. And sometimes that's invisible to many people in this chamber, but we know that you're there. So who's leading off the pack?
It'll be me.
You'll be you. Off you go. Introduce yourself, and your time starts now.
Good evening, council members and Mayor. My name is Darcy, and I'm joined here by Lani, Targa, Callum, Nikita, an apology from Elle, which will be having Lucy be a stand-in. We're representing the Onkaparinga Youth Committee this evening, along with more members in the audience. Now, OIC, do you want to acknowledge that we meet and plan our events on Ghana land?
The Onkaparinga Youth Committee is a group of expressive young people aged 12 to 25 who meet regularly to advocate the voice of young people who cannot, so that their voices can survive all across the city of Onkaparinga. The committee currently has 17 members and is welcome to new members, brilliant ideas and new opportunities. In 2024, the Onkaparinga Youth Committee hosted and contributed to many programs and events such as the Youth Recognition Awards, Your Voice Matters, the State Government Action Plan, and the tree planting event, along with much more. So far, we have had 3 meetings this year to discuss new events for 2025. We have made sure that all our ideas align with the City of Onkaparinga's community vision for 2034.
The OIC committee is super excited to be hosting a Harmony Day event on Sunday, the 23rd of March at one of our local community centres as well. We have already begun collaborating with a range of different local youth groups and multicultural organisations to get the logistics for this event well underway. We feel this event is important to bring together the wide range of diverse cultures we have amongst young people living in the city of Onkaparinga and to promote peace and love during this time as well. Thank you.
Alrighty, so Project 2 for the Onkaparinga Youth Committee is focusing to celebrate young people during Youth Week. Last year, the Youth Recognition Awards received 91 nominations. We would like to expand this number to unseen horizons. It is so important to acknowledge the amazing things young people are doing and continue to do in our community. So the OIC wishes for the council and elected members to share and promote all Youth Recognition Award media to get more community behind nominating the young people. Get assistance and advertising from any local businesses in your ward about the awards, the Onkaparinga Youth Awards, and attending the ceremony on the 14th of April at the Arts Centre, and you will all receive a formal invitation.
The third project for the OIC is Environmental July. In the past, the OIC has hosted environmental events such as river cleanups, working bees workshops, and more. Moving forward, we would like to create new and similar events with a focus on coastal regions as per council vision. As a coastal council, it is important that we take responsibility for our local beaches and shorelines by retaining a safe, clean and natural environment for everybody, including animals, plants and ecosystems. This can be achieved by direct and in-person work with the environment, as well as collaborating with organisations to educate and foster knowledge, respect and appreciation for our natural world. We recently met with some great local organisations at Aldinga, including Friends of Aldinga Scrub and Wollonga Environment Centre, and hope these connections will lead to something positive happening in the cooler months of the school holidays. If any elected members here today have connections with environmental leaders or know young people who want their chance to make a difference for the local environment, or who want to see a particular place cared for, please encourage them to get in contact with the OIC and follow us on Instagram to see what we have planned.
So Project 4, we'll be talking about Mental Health Month in October. Mental health remains one of the most significant challenges facing young people in Onkaparinga: stress, overload, and burnout are very common issues, and many young people feel that aren't enough accessible resources to support them. To help address this, we're developing Project 4 Mental Health, which is still in the ideation phase. We're hoping this will be workshops that we presented in a multimodal format, meaning they won't just be traditional lectures. Instead, we're hoping to incorporate different ways for young people to engage with the content, making them more interactive and accessible. Sessions will be available both in person and online, featuring lived experience educators and clinical psychologists who can provide practical experience, relatable stories, and leave attendees with a sense of positivity and empowerment. To help this project succeed, we will be asking the Council to recognise that youth mental health remains a top issue that continues to need funding and support. assisting in promoting the workshops via Onkaparinga Youth social media once they are scheduled, and engage with young people in your wards and ask what would encourage them to attend, whether that's free food, speakers, or accessible transport. With these resources, OYC would be empowered to deliver these workshops that are not only informative, but truly powerful, providing young people with the tools, support, and motivation they need to prioritise their mental health.
These are the words of Elle Bentley. Young people at Onkaparinga are doing incredible things, but too often their successes go unnoticed. Many teachers, parents, and other community members read Onkaparinga Now, yet there is little coverage of the achievements and stories of local young people. We want to change that. Project 5, Youth Storytelling, is still in the ideational phase, but our vision is clear. We want to create a dedicated youth storytelling space within Onkaparinga Now and the local council social media to highlight the contribution of young people. The initiative would start by revisiting past Youth Recognition Award recipients, sharing their journeys and growth since receiving their awards. However, we also want to go beyond that, bringing attention to silent achievers, young people who may not seek the spotlight, but whose stories can inspire others. To make this project as effective as possible, we believe it is important to work with someone who understands media and storytelling. That's why we're proposing a dedicated marketing or media intern student or advisor who can assist the Youth Storytelling Subcommittee in shaping these stories in an engaging and impactful way. For this project to move forward, we ask the Council to 1. Support a dedicated youth storytelling sector in Onkaparinga Now. 2. Assist us in finding a marketing or media intern, student or advisor who can guide us our storytelling efforts. And 3. Recognise that amplifying youth voices is key to fostering leadership, advocacy, and a stronger sense of community. By supporting this project, the Council can help ensure that young people's stories are heard, their successes are celebrated, and their voices help shape the future of Onkaparinga. Thank you, Council, for your time this evening. We will do our best to answer any questions you may have.
I'm not sure what the group photo was option, but if you want to take a selfie, good luck with that. Thank you so much. I really appreciate. I know that there's quite a big list of things here, and here's your first question is coming from Councillor Dew.
Thank you very much for that deputation and a huge overview of all the great work that you're doing. I have 2 questions. One was around, be good if I knew where I wrote it. How could elected members better support the work you're doing?
Who'd like to take that? Helen?
Thank you, Councillor Dew, for the question. We are really lucky to have the Mayor and Councillor Stafford as our direct link between the OIC and the Council. And I suppose having these opportunities to come and share all of the work that we are planning on doing is a wonderful way for you to be engaged with the committee and all of the activities that we do have planned for the year. I'd say how you could better support us is if you have time coming along to some of our meetings to see what we are getting involved in and how our processes are carried out at the meetings as well. And just promoting us to as many young people as you can and promoting the different events that we're running. We really appreciate that.
Wonderful, thank you. And my other question was around if you would consider potentially partnering with the youth team and presenting to council on what it's like to be a young person in Onkaparinga and giving us some tips and advice of how elected members could better engage with young people, and especially leading up to council elections and things like that. Would there be an openness potentially from the group?
Das, do you want to have a go at that one?
Thank you, Councillor June. Yeah, I think I can speak on behalf of the council, definitely be really excited to be engaging with that. A big thing is obviously we want to be trying to engage youth to be engaging the community in total. So to be able to then create more activation, especially coming into election time, I think that would be excellent. I think obviously you've got our OYC email and all the contact details, so we can definitely iron out what these specifics would look like.
I've got a couple of questions, if that's all right. Was in each of your projects, there were some really specific asks of council, and I'm just checking that you've got the means and the mechanisms within OYC to follow those through. So there were things like, you know, making sure that we got nominations into Youth Week, that we talked to our in our wards to local businesses. There was the question of the community bus, an internship, media advisors, like they were all quite a lot of really specific asks. So I'm just checking that and so this may be not for you, but whether the staff feel that, and you don't need to answer, I don't want to put you on notice, but are there enough links, do you feel, as a OIC to prosecute and follow those things through that you need?
Thank you, Matt. I personally, I think I can speak on behalf of the OIC. We feel prepared that our requests are fairly well thought out. I think in instances where we're looking at very specific ones, potentially an intern or potentially using the community bus, I think are well thought out and it helps achieve the goal we're looking for.
Okay.
And of course, we're looking for more specifics. We can be in touch.
All right, thank you. Councillor Bill. Question?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, thank you to all of you to come along and speak with us. It was very refreshing and very energetic, and I feel your passion. My question is, do you regularly or have you visited many schools in our city?
It's a good question. We do engage with schools in the local council region quite a bit, especially during Youth Week for the Youth Recognition Awards. And we try to connect with as many school children as possible at the different events that we are running or that we are in attendance at. But we haven't figured out a way yet to get into schools and to interact with school children. That's merely because so many of the members do attend school themselves. So it's hard to find time to be able to do that. But we can definitely discuss how we can get the members attending schools to promote the work of the OIC within their own school communities as well. So thank you for the idea.
Councillor THEMELIOTIS.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your presentation.
Oh, sorry, apologies.
A lot of people on the council are also in school. So while we come back from meetings, we have a whole bunch of information that we pass on to our school, our friends, and all our connections at that age.
Yep, that's it.
Thanks, Lani. Well done. Good teamwork. Love it. Councillor THEMELIOTIS.
Thank you, and thanks for your presentation. The Onkaparinga Youth Committee meetings, are you prepared to share out where your meetings are held? So hold some in the northern area, so my area, to encourage youth in the north, and some in the centre. And yeah, what have you thought about that?
Thank you for the question. We already are trying to, I guess, broaden. We've normally been doing it at Base 10, but especially in a lot more previous meetings, we've been going to Studio 20. We've been at that for community centre as well as
Wadley
here in NOARLUNGA. So that's definitely something we want to be trying to be broadening the overall reach, because of course it's all one for investment. So
Councillor Wilkes. Or does someone want to add? Go ahead, Alan.
Sorry, thank you, thank you, Marion, or Councillor Marion, for the questions. THEMELIOTIS, thank you. As Darcy said, now that the Aberfoyle Park Community Centre has been updated and they're planning on running a lot more youth-centred activities from there, we are definitely looking at holding some of our meetings there. I think it would also be wonderful if the OIC did share our meeting dates, times and locations with all of you, so that if you are available, you can come along to the meeting. So we'll definitely discuss doing that as well.
Thank you. Councillor Wilkes.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your deputation. It was really interesting. I was just wondering, when we're out and about, we want to tell people or kids about the Onkaparinga Youth Committee, what ages, like what age bracket do we have to look out for?
You can do it.
So the Onkaparinga Youth Committee is for youth, so anyone aged 12 to 25. Yeah.
Councillor Davis.
Hi, everyone. That was great. I had a similar question. How many do you currently have in your committee, and do you have a cap? Like, do you have a limit of how many people you can take?
Come on, Lane.
Thank you, Councillor Davis, for the question. We currently have 17 members from a whole range of different age groups in the committee. We have lots of loyal members and we also have a couple of new members. So it's great that we are
gaining that attention in the community to attract new members as well. The limit is about 20, so we are looking for 3 new members this year. So if any of you do have any recommendations, please send them our way, and we'll definitely reach out to the young people and invite them to one of our meetings. We'd love to hear from them. Thank you.
And Tiger certainly put the challenge out to get nominations in. It was a very long night last year with 91, and that was almost double from the year before. So, yeah, I think if we can continue that trajectory, it's a sign of our support too for our young citizens. So thank you very much, OIC, for coming and giving your deputation this evening. And as they're making their way back, if Steve McGuire and Steve Murray would like to make their way forward, that would be terrific. Crossover at the lights there. And thanks to the others too from OIC who were here to support each and every one of you. If you'd like to come down to where the microphone is as well, that would be terrific. So Steve McGuire is the president of the Happy Valley Sports Park, and Steve Murray is the chairman of the FLAGSTAFF Community Centre, and they're here tonight to speak to the item around extended lease terms. So you've got 8 minutes, and you'll hear that little ringing bell, 2 minutes to go, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much to the Council for the opportunity to present in support of the proposal that the Mayor just outlined. Just a bit of background on myself and Steve. My name is Steve McGuire. I'm the President of the Happy Valley Sports Park. And Steve Murray, if we can have the second slide. No. Steve Murray, who is the chairman of the Flagstaff Hill Community Centre. Both of us are qualified accountants and have had many years in business experience in administration and lease and contract negotiation. We also have many years of experience in sports administration and the welfare of the sporting clubs with the Happy Valley and Flagstaff Hill areas, representing the most northern areas of the Onkaparinga Council. The merits of the proposal. The proposal will provide a certainty of tenure for the clubs within the 2 groups that we represent and eliminate the opportunity to privatise the management of both groups. The current lease has an option to go to market after 5 years, and we feel that that does not give the certainty of tenure for the groups. The proposal will not place any financial burden on the council, but will provide a surety of income for a 15-year period. If the proposal was not supported to go to public consultation, both groups would not support the current leases as we find them not commercially viable. We have a number of areas of support for the proposal. We want to thank the Council's CEO for productive discussions, for his openness and support for a more equitable lease arrangement, which this proposal is a key part of. We have met with Erin Thompson, member for Davenport, Katrina Hilliard, member for Renell, and at the time of the meeting, the Minister for Sport and Recreation, the CEO of Recreation and Sport, and they have supported the proposal. We have discussed the proposal with Thalassa Council representatives Marion THEMELIOTIS and Jeff Eaton, and they have pledged their support of the proposal. We've also contacted the multi-user sports facilities, of which there are probably about 7 or 8 in the Onkaparinga area, and they have pledged their support as well. Questions?
That was very short and sweet. I will open it up for any questions to the any of the elected members. Councillor Eaton.
Thanks for your presentation. Just with these extended leases, what vision do you guys have in respect to each of your facilities as to the types of infrastructure changes that you'd like and those types of things? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And as Steve pointed out, with a potentially a 15-year term, there is more scope to do longer-term planning, whether it's trying to train staff to take on administrative functions, or probably the best example I can come up with is that we've recently learned that there is a board at Flagstaff Hill. Now we've been paying arguably through the nose for water, all of us. Mains water for the whole of Flagstaff precinct. There's a bore there. Happy Valley uses a bore. That means lower costs for the council and for the users. That bore needs about $30,000 investment. If we've got a 15-year tenure, that puts us in a position to go and actually fundraise with the interest of providing an infrastructure upgrade and benefits for both of us. A 5-year term, on the other hand, where there's no opportunity to renew, and the lease or the term has been written in such a fashion that it's likely to be handed to someone else, provides us with no incentive at all to chase those sorts of developments. So it's about having surety. It's about putting systems in place. The leases are quite onerous in terms of what's required from us. As Steve's pointed out, we're accountants by profession. We've got some idea of what's required to produce the books and conform with all of the requirements the leases embody, but it's an onerous task, and it is from our perspective too difficult, or not worth the effort. With just a 5-year term, which has a built-in guarantee that we're out in our area and or we're reporting to some private enterprise. Should point out that the CEO, as Steve's pointed out, has been great to do with, and he's made the point that there's no plan to privatise these facilities, which is good. Council in the past has had a mixed history in that regard. You can ask the Hub Gymnastics Club about their experience with life in a privatised facility. So it's been made clear that that's not the current plan, but that's what the lease that we have in front of us actually stipulates.
Thank you. Councillor Davis, question or debate? Question?
Question, yes. I'm new to council, obviously, and new to this whole procedure. So how long have you leased the current facilities, and have there been any challenges along the way while you've already been leasing them?
How long have we got? We currently have leases that were, well, they were dated. The lease we had, and the Happy Valley one's the same. They were dated from 2012 to 2015 with no renewal. We signed ours, or my predecessor signed ours 8 months prior to them expiring. So just the 2013 they didn't sign, 12, 13, 14. So they were pretty much pushing it. So it was a bit of a stopgap document. We've had significant issues subsequent to that because we were in a significant dispute with council when we spent a year out of our facility whilst it was rebuilt without any income. That lease made provision for a reduction in the rent and the associated outgoings. But the issue is that things so old and shrouded in time that actioning that and getting some clarity about what we actually owe for the lease or any other agreement is difficult. So it's been, our leases have been renewed on a month-by-month basis for a decade now. And that's part of what drives us, as you can tell. It's a bit hard to put us up after the youngsters, but we're not spring chickens. So our vision, but it's part of Jack's vision. Our vision is to set up an equitable long-term structure for our communities and then hand the keys over to them.
And also the vision is that, and you'd probably be aware that the majority of people that are involved in these sporting clubs are volunteers, and we need to set that up. And the leases need to be set up in a way that you don't have to be a road scholar to read it. You can work through it and in a simplistic way so that volunteers can understand it.
Thank you. Councillor Wilkes.
Thank you. Thank you for your deputation. I just had a question. You always obviously had a bit of considerable stress and discussions about this lease. You haven't been leased, signed off since 2015. Is a 5-5-5 equally 15-year? That's what we approved tonight and go to community consultation? Are you guys happy with that? Is that sufficient to sort of?
We pissed. We go through a hard time. We asked for 25. I have a background in basketball.
Yes.
So I worked with a basketball club which has a 20-year lease.
Yes.
Of the significant facility in the northern suburbs, and that calls for 5. So we asked for 20. He was prepared to back us in 15. We're prepared to back him in because it's a hell of a lot better than having 5 years and then a guarantee basically that we've all been seen in our faces. So, but the thing I should also point out, in case it is important, is that typically it's not a guaranteed 15. That's an initial term of 5 years, and then provided we're all getting along and we're not in breach, and then we have the opportunity to exercise the right to a further 5 years. So all things being equal, it'll be 15. 15 is better for us in our communities. And Steve, how long have you been 15?
You're not required to answer that question. There will be some of us still in the chamber. It won't be me, but our youngest councillor is 20. So there's a great future here. I see no further questions. So thank you very much, gentlemen, for your.
Thank you for your time.
Our next deputation is we've got Rita KELLAWAY and Ben PASSMORE. If you'd like to come up as crossing over again at that little threshold of the gate. And this is in relation to section 220, our internal review of the Murray Road reconstruction. And Rita, are you going first?
Yes, we're going to have a joint presentation.
Thank you. So you've got 8 minutes.
Murray Road West is a dangerous road. And it's only a matter of time before there is another serious accident. We don't want that to be our children, family, or friends. You have the power to overturn the original decision and reconsider option B, recommended by professional council staff at the August meeting and supported by the majority of Murray Road residents, as outlined in the community engagement feedback report presented to that meeting. The unique topography of this busy connector road increases the level of accident risk, both high likelihood and high consequence. Option B, sorry, I need to go back. There we go. Option B addressed this. To quote council staff, retention of the rain gardens also increases the community concern around traffic speed and driver behaviour, as the gardens reduce the trafficable road width and create a lower speed environment. To quote John Lambert, a senior resident of 80-some years living at number 32, a serious accident occurred several years back involving a parked truck opposite my home. And in late 2023, my vehicle was parked in front of my house and was written off by a motorist turning from Cornish Avenue. To quote Maria, another senior resident living at the bottom of the crest, I have safety concerns every time I drive out of our driveway. Cars are often parked on the northern side of the road, which makes it difficult to see cars travelling east on Murray Road. I would like to see no parking on the northern side of Murray Road. There are full quotes at the end of your handout. Angela lives at number 38, where, to quote council, the 85th percentile speed recorded near 38 Murray Road is concerning. Now I'm going to try to get the video playing, but I'm not sure how I can get. Could someone help me? Just
because the fact is that I had no idea that it actually wasn't the rain gardens until it came through with a letter saying, well, no, we're not doing that, you know, and that's it. But no sort of discussion why or any reason for it until, you know, you explained it to me, what had happened. And apparently there was a petition and I wasn't even asked if I wanted to sign the petition or not, or anything. But my biggest concern is the speed of the traffic, because as you know, I am reversing into the speed of the traffic straight over the hill. The rain gardens would actually, I'd have somewhere that I could actually reverse into and then move out, and it would be slower traffic, because so many times there's been near misses because I've got to go either one way into the traffic or other way. And if I go quickly into the traffic, something comes straight over the hill. So it's such a dangerous place to be living. And safety is the most important thing, especially as you're getting older. Like most of my friends are, you know, in their 70s, and really, it's such a dangerous part of the street. I mean, my neighbour's in her 70s too, and she has to do the same thing. You know, it's a very, very dangerous part of the road. The first proposal that I saw, I thought fantastic. Little like pretty little areas so that it would be safer for all of us. The council were going to put that through. I was under the impression that had been accepted. And then suddenly, oh no, we're just doing the pathway. We're not doing anything else. We're cutting back. And when I spoke to the council, or when I read it, there was nothing about speed. So that meant that they were doing all that work and still we were going to have fast traffic, which is so dangerous.
Safety should be the first priority in your decision making. Since the council meeting in August, I have conducted surveys of cars parked on the street, and these results are detailed in my report. At any one time in those 6 months, I have never seen or recorded more than 26 cars parked on the street, whether it's morning, day, evening, weekends, boiling hot weather, or blues festivals. Most times it is considerably less. That is only 66% of car spots which would have been available under option B. I specifically gathered data from the recent blues festival, in which just about every single has live shows on at the same time over the weekend. There was no difference in parking on Murray Road. It is not used as an overflow road. On-road parking spots in option B would have far exceeded proven demand. This diagram shows the on-road car parking spaces allocated between Cornish and Alexander Avenue, where the crest is located, under option B. As you can see, they are evenly allocated along the whole road. Those coloured pink, however, have been removed in option C. Let me introduce Ben, who lives in the middle of those would-be safe car spaces, now denied him.
Good evening, all. Thanks for taking the time to listen to Rita and myself. My name is Ben, a resident of the affected part of Murray Road. A few of my concerns are lack of parking on the crest, for example, when older parents, in-laws, visitors are visiting. On a road which people are using as a shortcut and can be doing speeds of up to 80 kilometres per hour at top of the crest, this road is quite wide and can be dangerous to cross if there isn't a park available. Having to park 70 metres down the road and walk up the hill. 2, young children crossing the road. Being so close to the school and having 2 young children of my own and seeing a lot of young children in the area having to cross the road and cut through the park on the western side of the crest to get to school is a recipe for disaster unless something is done to reduce the width of the road and to lower the speed of vehicles. In short, with no car parks available to certain residents on Murray Road, it is opened up like a racetrack. It is more dangerous than ever before. I hope council can come to a safe and happy resolution for all involved. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben and Rita. Oh, no, we'll have to, no, you might get a question that will help you answer it. I'm pretty strict on those rules. Councillor Platten.
Thank you so much. And thank you,
question?
Ben. Yeah, question.
Go.
Yeah. Thank you, Ben and Rita, for coming and speaking. It's great. Have you read the report to council tonight? Yes. And in that report, which option would you like to see happen?
I think that option 2 is preferable because in option 2, the decision goes out to the residents again, so they're very clear and transparent about what's happening, and then it's settled on the 18th of March at the next meeting. And I think we'd agree we don't want to delay this any further than it's already been delayed.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. I can ask you a question. Was there something else you wanted to say to us?
I just wanted to finish up by asking you to follow the lawyer's recommendation, revoke the original decision, thus enabling the revisiting of option B to significantly improve safety of children, residents, pedestrians and road users.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you very much for coming in tonight, Ben and Rita. Appreciate it. Okay, we are now moving into reports of committees. Apologies, Councillor Yeomans, I'd already closed that off. We are now at Audit and Risk Committee meeting minutes. Councillor Pritchard.
Happy to move as written.
Do you wish to speak to them?
I will. Unfortunately, Councillor Fisher is not here to hear my ARC summary, which is very disappointing, but no doubt he'll watch it on the video afterwards. Audit and Risk Committee, a couple of weeks ago, we got to meet the new external auditors, which is Dean Newberry. So they come along to the meeting. And the other probably main point of interest was around the internal audit reports from KPMG. 2 that were presented to us in this meeting. One was around the Encore festivals and support for those, which was an interesting internal audit because it's probably not an activity that would normally be audited. There were some interesting outcomes from that, so I think that program will benefit from those. The other one was a review of the internal customer complaints process. And again, I think that program is really going to benefit from some of the findings that were found in that. So that was really positive. Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Yeomans.
Yeah, I'm happy to second. Could I just
go ahead,
say a couple of words too, please? Just in a couple of points that I just highlighted in the minutes that you've got attached to the agenda there. 7.1. What the Audit Committee was keen on was that the one council, which is the technological side of things, is presented as an agenda item. That does create a lot of discussion during those meetings, so it might be a standalone item. There was some support for the 7.3 in the audit report, which is the budget review 2. A couple of points there that to note that the movements captured within budget review 2 don't change the trajectory of the adopted long-term financial plan. So that was reassuring. In relation to the 25-26 budget long-term financial plan assumptions, there was discussion there that reaffirming that the 5 principles of the long-term financial plan as being important for the financial stability, sustainability of the council. There was also mentioned on page 117 of that report, where there was a risk identified by the staff. It's in relation to the mobile refinery, where because of the valuation of that particular parcel of land, may change as a result of a couple of acts being rescinded, that could potentially lose the revenue, or lose about $800,000 in revenue that the council's receiving as it currently stands. So there's a bit of work behind the scenes between the staff and the government to sort of see what they can resolve there. But it was an interesting risk to discuss. And also, finally, that the ARC did actually receive, as we received in our elected member session in relation to the financial planning timetables, the ARC noted its involvement in that timetable. So that was a positive as well. So apart from that, thanks very much.
Thank you. Any questions? Do you wish to close debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. And just as an aside, Councillor Yeomans, I did raise that with the Minister with the little conversation I had on Friday. Item 9.1, so this is section 270 internal review. And are there any updates?
Through the Mayor, just to note that the members have been provided with background on section 270 process, and also that we've had 2 informal questions with responses provided. Invite Michael Kelledy from Kelledy Jones to come up and answer any questions that you may have as the external reviewer. He's available to go through.
Thank you. Councillor Wilkes.
Excellent. I will let Michael take his seat and then I have a question for him. I'd like to.
Yeah, you can come up here. Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you for being here.
So you're not moving the motion, you're asking a question?
I just want to ask a quick question, if that's okay.
Yes, certainly.
Thank you for your report. The recommendations that you found were quite broad, but they definitely and certainly favoured option 2 and 3, which we've got in our report. I was just wondering, if we wanted to have a really good, robust community engagement, would you recommend option 2 or 3?
If you want a really robust consultation process, it's option 2. But I did discuss with your officers the issue of time and implications arising from another full consultation process. And that's where I said, as far as I'm concerned, option 3 will suffice for the purpose of my recommendations. And you've heard tonight from the deputation that would appear to satisfy what they were looking for as well.
Yes.
No, that's, oh, sorry, other way.
Other way around, I think.
Other
way around, I think. And just to note that what has been provided by Kelledy Jones is a review of the process. It's up to us to be in the so I'm just curious about how that's your response is a reflection of the process. So I think we just have to be careful. Do you want to comment on that?
That's absolutely correct, Mayor. What I identified was a number of concerns with the process, in particular around the issue of procedural fairness and otherwise the giving of reasons. There was a bit of a gap in the public consultation process. It's referenced in the report about another touchstone, I think is how your officers referred to it, and that touchstone didn't occur, and that's why the application was made, as I understand.
Excellent. Okay, another question? No, thank you. And with the deputation, I'd like to move 1, 2, 3, option 2, and then 4.
So that's 3B?
3B, yes.
Okay, can we just have that up? And so, and not, if you go further down, so not option 3.
So it's finalised at the March meeting.
So can we just get rid of option 3? I just want to make sure that on the screen everyone's clear. Thank you, and thank you, Sue. So you comfortable that's your intention, Councillor?
Yes, and then can I also please have at section I from option 2 where it says further engage with all persons, and then can you please write on Murray Road that were consulted?
So I further engage with all persons, comma, on Murray Road.
Yeah.
Got it. That's it?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Would you like to speak to the motion?
Of course. I would like to.
Time starts now.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Rita. Thank you for coming in. Really great to get the community voice in the chamber. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. There's a really robust report about the process. I think that they've done a great job sort of outlining, and I think that there was a little bit of incomplete. I sort of agreed with the report as well. I just want to put my 2 cents worth in and say I don't think that there was that incomplete factor because of lack of care. I really felt like that might be a little bit of policy missing. So moving forward, I think maybe if we looked at the fact whether we actually take deputations, why we are having a community engagement, should that be something that we're doing? Because that really threw the process out. So if we've got an open community engagement, we should be directing people to go there and maybe say, hey, we're actually not going to take petitions while you have the option to have your say through that method. I think that would sort of be a great policy avenue to go down. And I also just thought maybe if we made a policy decision as well about if we're going to have a Your Say page and it's going to be dedicated to information, if we are making a decision at council, then policy should say we have to update that Your Say page with that decision that's coming to council. Because at the moment when I asked that question, that was told, no, we update it after once the council's made the decision. And I thought that could be something we could implement as well. So hopefully this doesn't happen again. Thank you.
Councillor Patton, question or debate?
Question to begin, please.
Okay, go ahead.
In section I, further engage with all persons on Murray Road that were consulted in the earlier consultation. Is that all persons on Murray Road, or is it only a select few?
I think the motion reads all persons on Murray Road.
That were consulted in the earlier.
Yes.
Yeah, so everyone is going to be consulted.
Maybe further engage with all persons on Murray Road and then get rid of that word consulted. So then all persons on Murray Road are captured in this new consultation.
Would you second them?
I would definitely second it if it said that.
Well, are you willing to second it with that? Because we're at the point where we need to make it, be able to move on that.
Sorry.
Otherwise, I'll just treat it as a conversation and we'll wait till somebody seconds it.
Am I able to ask that the person that, I have to second it first, is that correct?
We don't have a seconder at the moment.
Yeah, if I second it, am I able to change that is the question I'm asking.
In consultation with the mover.
Great. I'm happy to second it.
Thank you. And so the mover, are you happy with further engagement with all persons on Murray Road? Delete that word consulted.
Yes.
Is that correct? Is that what your intention was, councillor?
For everyone on Murray Road to be consulted.
I think, and that's the intention of councillor Platten.
Earlier, and removing earlier consultation.
Yes, so and on Murray Road.
Yep.
That's just on Murray Road, full stop. Just full stop.
Thank you.
Delete, delete, delete. Yep, thank you. I think we're nearly there. Let's just.
Yeah, by making.
That's right.
Yep.
Are we all mover and seconder happy? Second, did you wish to speak to this?
Yes, I think it's really important to be able to change our decisions and review our processes. And I think in this circumstance, given the nature of the divide, it's really important to reconsult and make sure that everyone has the ability to have their say, and that not just it come out in an agenda, that it go on to your say. So I think that this is a really good opportunity for us to show that we're listening, and I look forward very much to the results.
Thank you. Councillor Dew, question or debate?
A question, thank you. I was interested in what you've written, Michael, in relation to council's responsibility. Great, I've just lost it. I'm just going to have to add lib. Council's responsibility when we receive a petition, and the role of council to ensure that other residents who may have opposing views are aware of that. And if that's an expectation, I read the legislation that you referred to, and I thought, is that open for interpretation, or should there be a general process that we always go through to make it publicly visible that there's a petition that we've received even before a council meeting where it would be tabled?
Okay, the legislation is that the regulations are fairly broad. They don't provide you with the details. Therefore, when it comes to dealing with petitions, the detail that's required is often encapsulated in a policy, usually the council's code of practice for meeting procedures. My observations here is that a petition was received within time.
Mhm.
The second petition was received out of time after the consultation process had been completed. And then there was no fail-safe to ensure that the engagement with the petitioners and knowledge of the petition was made known to those other persons who had bothered to participate in the consultation process, because this was a matter of interest to them.
Mm. And so was it unfair in case they too themselves wanted to provide a deputation or a petition? How was that unfair to those that had already engaged in the process? I'm just trying to understand. Is it about
the issue of lack of fairness has to be looked at in the bigger context.
Sure.
In terms of the consultation process was completed on option A.
Mhm.
Arising from that came the recommendation of option B.
Mhm.
There was a total gap in any further touch points, as your officers described it, with those people who had expressed an interest. They'd made a submission and they understood that this was a process they would be further engaged
Sure.
in before a final decision. That means in these circumstances, to the extent that the petitions are relevant and certain level of weight is going to be given to them, that they ought to be made known. The contents of the petitions and the direction it was going ought to be made known to those persons.
Sure, thank
and
you.
that's through the Your Say page.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I'll move into debate.
Okay.
I'm glad that we're making the decision to rescind and to, I guess, go out again and with a blank canvas to ascertain community sentiment. I do want to just super quickly just acknowledge the work that staff had done leading up to that, because I remember the night and there was quite a robust piece of work, including community engagement that had taken place. And, you know, we may arrive at option, you know, where we've already been, but it's good that we can actually go through that process again. So thank you for everyone for their patience, and including residents as well. And thank you for the deputation tonight.
Councillor Yeomans, a question? Sorry, I'm trying to, there we go.
Just a debate, okay. Yes, look, I think those modifications that were made satisfies. I must admit, I was looking at that other option where it's sort of like a bit more of a blanket community consultation, but that's really nailing what I think the essence of what this is all about. If I could just to sort of reaffirm, I do support what we're doing here from the lawyers there. Accordingly, the reviews proceed on the basis that the applicant has concerns not only with the consequences of the decision if the decision is implemented, but also in relation to the decision-making process following the closure of the council community engagement process on the 19th of May 2024. So at the end of the day, this is more of a criticism of the process, and I think it's fair, you know, from that point of view, that we weren't completely fully informed of what was happening, and certainly the fact that not all the communities who were involved were consulted in relation to the other options that were being presented. So that did put us at that disadvantage. One of the other findings that I felt quite relevant was reading the documentation that the lawyer had made the point. I think this is what we can learn from, is that the council report was somewhat curiously titled Petition Murray Road Port Noarlunga Reconstruction, which in itself does not give any indication. Indeed, it couldn't even be considered to be misleading. It could be considered to be misleading in relation to the objectives of the report and the fact the council was being asked to make a final decision on the design. So I think those are the sorts of things that we can learn from when we're crafting these reports. So look, at the end of the day, there certainly was more of a discussion in the report in relation to the process. Thanks for doing that. It was an interesting read, and I'll certainly support what we're doing here. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bell, question or debate? Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick debate. I just wanted to thank you, sir, for your report. It was very thorough. Unfortunately, I wasn't at that meeting when this decision was made. I certainly recall thinking Plan B was a good option at the time, but unfortunately I couldn't attend for other personal reasons. But it was a good reading. Your report highlighted and reminded me of our duty as councillors to really ensure that we bring in the principle of natural justice, and we have a duty to be fair and make sure that obviously we take everybody into account.
And in this case, as was pointed out by the deputation, that 58% of people did support the original scope, and particularly Plan B. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wilkes, do you wish to close?
Sorry, I just wanted to, because I think both Councillor Dew and Councillor Yeomans touched on the fact of learning from this. And I just think I've learned definitely being in council that people really love not knowing what's going on. And if it's outside their house, they really care. So if they're told like how they can find out information, they're going to be on it. So I think if there's a policy or there's a process or there's something we can do to clear it up so that, you know, if we tell people to look or this is going on, we need to have something that's going to really close that book. And if we don't, it could possibly end up in this same instance. But yeah, so I just really hope that this is going to lead to some really great community engagement. And then in the March meeting, we'll sort of discuss it and do it all again. So look forward to it.
Thank you. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Item 9.2 is the consultation regarding the leases. And I'm just checking, is there an update? I think the answers to questions. So I think Councillor THEMELIOTIS and Councillor Yeomans and Pritchard had questions, which I believe have been answered. Councillor THEMELIOTIS.
Yes, I'd like to move the motion with an additional line.
Where would you like that line?
It's there. There it is, number 4.
So do you want to just give
I'll speak briefly to point 4. Point 4 is really just taken out of the report, so there wasn't anything strategic about it, but I really wanted to make it quite visible to our other multi-user groups that what the intent is going forward is to bring them all in line to long-term leases as well. So no one's left out. We're all treating all of our multi-user clubs the same. So that's that. That was bringing that point in there for elected members. Elected members, you've heard the deputation, and I really want to thank council staff, our CEO, and our volunteers at our sporting clubs who have worked collaboratively over quite a long portion of time, and we finally got there. We are here. There's been a lot of conversations, a lot of emails, a lot of phone calls, and a lot of long meetings. But we finally got to a stage where we have some really passionate volunteers who care about our facility. They care about our community, and they are enshrined and embedded in our community. They become a bit of the heart and soul of our community, because when there's events, everyone swarms to our multi-use community centres, our sporting clubs. So why long-term lease? Well, there's a couple of pros to long-term lease, and it increases that collaboration with council, and it builds that trust and long-term relationship with council. It also gives that assurance and stability to our clubs that they can plan for the future. Not only that, they know what's coming with their lease increases, so there's no surprises. They know that every year there's probably going to be a in line with CPI lease increase, and they can plan for that and be ahead of the game. It also, I feel like there's going to be some cost saving, and the cost saving is probably staff time. So instead of staff wasting their time with documents, they can go out doing the good job that they do away from the desks, delivering for our community. There's also some continuity. So when boards change, they've got time to work with long-term leases. They know what's coming. So continuity is actually quite important and something that's raised with our clubs. There's also improved facilities. So what happens to our clubs? They feel like they've got some genuine skin in the game, like this is our home. Let's work with council and push council's advocacy plan when there's funding available. Let's go out and actively seek funding for upgrades that won't only support council's facility, but support the clubs. So an example that was given was the bore. So if clubs start now generating funds to fix that bore, council's got a brand new asset, and they've got cheaper water costs. So there's a benefit to both. There's also a great benefit from the neighbours. So the neighbours that surround these clubs are supportive of these clubs, and they volunteer at these clubs. They serve me coffee at these clubs, which I pay for. But they're there and they're part of that facility. And they want to know that that facility and that green open space is going to be there for future generations, and they utilise that facility to walk their dogs, to go for a run, for athletics. So it's part of the community, it's part of the home base there. And there's also a fear that, you know, if someone did leave, that things would just go to housing. And you know what? Our green open spaces are too important for that in some occasions. We also had long-term leases with the Star of Greece, who wanted some assurances, Hub Gymnastics, who wanted assurances, Surf Lifesaving Clubs with some assurances, and they all just make business sense. It's just smart business sense, elected members. So I'm hoping you will support me and support our volunteers with this long-term lease.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Eaton, a question, or are you seconding the motion?
I'm certainly seconding the motion.
Thank you.
What this does is give those clubs the opportunity to plan ahead, and they know that they've got a commitment. And certainly they're out there doing it. I'm not going to repeat what my co-councillor said, but it's important also that this does is reinforces that we want this to occur across all of our clubs, at all of our those facilities. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wilkes, question or debate?
Excellent. I just debate, please. I just want to say I agree with this wholeheartedly. I definitely do. I'm just really happy that you have included point 4 in there, because when I was going through it, I've got all these little marks. I was going to ask, what about the other clubs? Like, how do they instigate it? What does it mean for them that when they have to start that process within 12 months? So, yes, I'm really happy that you've brought that to the attention, Councillor THEMELIOTIS. I thank you for thinking of them as well. I think the benefits from this motion are going to be huge, and I can't wait to see what doors this opens for our amazing, amazing clubs.
Thank you. Councillor June, question or debate?
A question, thank you.
Go ahead.
It's to staff. I wondered, item 4, if we go straight to public consultation, and if there are instances where there's challenges between that maybe are unresolved between us, I don't know any examples, I'm just asking broadly, is that through this process able to be resolved or worked through if we're jumping straight to public consultation? Does my question make sense?
So is there room for some nuances on the journey before public consultation?
If it's required, yeah.
Happy to take that question. You can take on notice. Through you, Mayor. The resolution does say just that consultation will be undertaken in the last 12 months of the lease expiring.
Sure.
So it's not undertaken right now. Some leases won't expire for the next 2 or 3, 4 years.
Sure.
If they've only just entered into a 5-year lease. Yeah. So it'll be in the last 12 months. And we'll certainly make sure that all, you know, they're compliant with all their current lease terms and conditions.
Yeah.
Before going that next stage into entering into the lease.
Perfect. Thank you.
There being no further questions, Councillor THEMELIOTIS, would you like to close? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, all those against, and we'll record that as carried unanimously. And I do really want to thank the entire community of multi-use sporting parks for their work and patience, and also the staff here at the council have been really working well on this, and I'm pleased that we've got that result. 9.3 is the review of council members to the City of Onkaparinga's Council Assessment Panel. Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to nominate Councillor Greaves.
You're moving.
I'd like to move, yes. And I'd like to nominate Councillor Greaves if she's willing. Yes, yep. Please. And in B, in his absence, Councillor Fisher, who expressed expressed last time to be on the committee as a proxy. Is that possible?
Yes.
To do?
Councillor Greaves will, I think, wishes to identify a conflict of interest.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Bell. But yes, I do. Would like to declare a material conflict of interest as a current sitting member of the CAP, and also as somebody who is happy to accept a nomination to continue that role. And I will leave the chamber. Thank you.
And I'll just wait till Councillor Greaves is left before Councillor Bell can begin her. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to start by thanking the staff for bringing this report to council, as had been requested by the chamber previously. I think
it obviously demonstrates what also the chair of the CAP expressed on that meeting, I believe. The importance of the independence of the members that currently sit on the committee, but also having an elected member on the panel does bring uniquely personal knowledge about the area, which is really important. Understanding of course, our strategic plans and our open spaces. And I believe that it is possible for us all to be in a position like this, where in some circumstances, obviously, we have to keep things confidential, and there may be times where we just can't disclose anything. And I think that's just part of our job. I've certainly been used to doing similar things in different hats and different roles, and I'm doing that now in this job as well. And if, you know, in the past I've had to delegate that role to someone else respectfully, and I think that it's appropriate that Councillor Greaves could do the same and request that that we take on, for example, if a resident wanted to be represented. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Yeomans.
Yeah, I wasn't going to second it. I was going to second it. I was just going to debate.
Do you wish to second it as well?
No, I can if you want. Yeah.
Go ahead. We'll take that as that, and I will welcome your debate. Go ahead.
I think part of the review is also to have a discussion and an open discussion about the relevance of having an elected member on the CAP. And reading the report, it appears that there's only one other Metropolitan Council of the ones that were reviewed. So one council that didn't actually have an elected member on the CAP, if I read the report right. On page 206, it talks about considering both codes of conduct, a council member on an assessment panel may need to avoid or forego discussions or consultation with members of the public, media engagements or public statements which they would ordinarily participate in. I guess the point I'm making is that when it comes to council elections, the community is actually voting for you to be the representative, not for you to represent or be part of the council assessment panel. So I would not like to be in a position where there was a bit of a contentious issue coming up with a building application, and a resident, particularly if they voted for it, came to you asking for some support, asking for some advice, asking for you to do a bit of work on it. First thing I needed to say to them was, look, I'm on the CAP and I can't help you. So that to me would be a conflict anyway. Councillor Greaves has a lot more experience in that in this world than what I will ever have. So she's obviously able to deal with that. What I ask, and I'm not going to up this one, but at the end of the day, where Tilly is in this, we've got a bit of an understanding of what we need to do. I think when it comes to the next election, when the next elections happened and occurred, there's a new chamber in place. Hopefully some people are still sitting here. But I think it's really important when these nominations come up that there's some words around what's required if you want to put your hand up for this, because it really is important that you understand that there will be some times where you just need to walk away from your elected member role in the actual ward you're representing. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Eaton.
Yes, look, I'll support it. I would have actually liked to see a bit of a change. Sometimes change is good, but considering there's been no other nominations, then take it as it is. It does reflect what's occurring in the rest of the metropolitan area. In support of what Councillor Yeomans said, I actually had the experience, and we had a number of developments in Thalassa ward that I could not discuss with those residents. And of course, there were some visits that occurred to other locations to make sure that there was no potential conflict with my role as a deputy member. And it does inhibit what you can do, and it can actually lead to some very negative comments from residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bell, do you wish to close? Go ahead.
Just very briefly now, I just wanted to say that thank you for those who made comments just now, councillors. When we were elected, there was an expectation, I believe, that the community believed that we will take on leadership roles.
And this is one of those leadership roles. There's many others that we put our hands up to take part in, and we might share or we take turns in doing. I would suggest that the role that Heidi is also representing the community. If you've been to one of the meetings, you can read and hear that they're also having to protect the community in some circumstances and respond and ensure that, for example, some businesses are making sure they're doing their checks on sound and the impacts of sound on the community nearby, as a simple example. So I'd support and encourage people to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I will put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. And if someone can advise Councillor Greaves. Item 9.4, as this relates to me, I'm going to invite the Deputy Mayor to come and chair this item and declare a conflict of interest, a personal interest, because I may receive a personal benefit of professional and personal influence or status attached to this role. So I will leave and be nice to the Deputy.
Yeah, I think so. So we're obviously talking about item 9.4, which is the ICLEI Oceania Regional Executive Committee, with the Mayor expressing interest. Councillor Bell, would you like to move the motion?
Thank you.
That's the question.
Deputy Mayor, I'd like to move the motion and speak to the motion briefly, if I may. Thank you. Thank you. I think this is a very special request and an invitation to the Mayor. I think it's something we should be very proud of, that the Mayor has been asked to participate in. And by coincidence, it just means that retrospectively it's come to us to approve. Obviously, the Mayor was requested earlier in the piece, and then on further information, Council was advised that it would be best to obviously come through Council to have approval. I understand that the Mayor may not be able to or cannot attend. For example, there's reference here to a summit that is in South Korea. I understand she won't be able to probably attend because, of course, the commitments we have here in the chamber at Council with the budget. Just for your information, I understand that that offer is for, of course, our Mayor to speak at the I understand to the summit, and if she were to go to that or to a summit in the future, I understand that the organisation would pay for her to attend. But of course, this is specifically about declaring her and approving, I should say, for her nomination to ICLEI Oceanic Regional Executive Committee, which is a prestigious committee to be a part of, and I'm very proud that our Mayor is doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Councillor Davis, would you like to second the motion or ask a question?
I'd like to second it. I think it's quite inspirational that our Mayor is representing us across so many platforms, so I'm happy to second it.
Wonderful. As there's nobody else to... Oh, sorry, Councillor Eaton. Would you like to ask a question or debate? Please go ahead.
How many meetings do they have a year? And how long do they go for? And is there a possibility of they held online? Thank you.
Through the Mayor, the RECONSTRUCTIon meetings, I believe there's maybe 4 or so a year, and yes, they tend to be online and for a couple of hours, I believe.
Thank you. As there's no one else to speak, all those in favour? Unanimously supported. Thank you very much. Can someone please let the Mayor know she can come back in? Am I allowed to say that?
Thank you, everyone. We are now up to 9.5, which is the quarterly finance report, and interest rates announcements today will be of interest to all of us. Do I have a mover for this item? Councillor Pritchard.
Happy to move as written.
Thank you. Do you wish to speak?
Yeah, just I was going to say just quickly because that's what I say, but the budget review documents, I think everyone's looked at them. There's not a great deal of change from budget review 1 in terms of the overall performance. Council's looking really healthy. I'm not sure if that's the right word. For this financial year, maintaining our surplus, which is the main item for us. Specifically, some good growth in the aquatic centre, the golf course, the tourist parks. CWMS has not spent any of the money on any emergency works, which is great. Hopefully that surplus remains. And yeah, just one minor hiccup with tech. One council program cost us a bit of interest payments, which was a shame.
Thank you. Councillor Greaves.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, happy to second, and I think my wording would be tracking positively.
Tracking positively. I think that many people would share that view. Councillor Pritchard, did you wish to close? No questions. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you, everyone. And yes, tracking positively is a nice response. 9.6, the resource prioritisation documents. I don't believe there's an update for this. Councillor Eaton.
Yes, certainly I would support this. It's a very comprehensive scaling system that's being used. One thing I am quite delighted to actually see now that we're going to include the years that particular locations were developed, because that might give some priorities to some people in Thalassa ward that have been living in areas for 54 years. They've experienced the Widows Council and then moved on to Happy Valley Council and Onkaparinga, and they're still waiting for footpaths. So hopefully that change in priority there will give them the opportunity at some stage. But overall, it's a very comprehensive document. Certainly you've got some good scorings in there that will be taken into account, and I think that it's fair. Thank you.
Thank you for moving that, Councillor. And Councillor Greaves.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, happy to second it.
To speak?
Yeah, actually, yes, very, very briefly. It was just interesting over dinner. We were reflecting with Kirk Richardson about what our budget discussions were like without this document. And they were incredibly protracted and very, very difficult and very nimbyist, if you can use that as a word. Let's just say there were a lot of agendas around the table, but this is a document that has been in place for quite a number of years now, and truly has been probably one of the most valuable documents for determining where and when we spend our money. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Yeomans, a question or debate?
Just a question of clarification, if I can.
Go ahead.
I've just got to refer to a couple of documents, if that's right. That's part of the question. Page 303, when it comes to the CWMS resource prioritisation document, mentions under the Local Government Act, revenue received from the CWMS charges, excluding the return on asset and return on risk component, can only be expended upon the provision of the CWMS service. When we talked about the return on risk and an allowance for unquantifiable risks, that's what we used to refer to as the rebate. Back in, as you might recall, back in the special council meeting in June last year, through the Water Asset Strategic Review, has highlighted that should the assets be retained, the removal of the CWMS rebate would provide income of approximately $1.6 million per annum.
And your question?
This revenue, whilst reported through the organisation's finance statements, is required to be quarantined for CWMS purposes. So my question is, what is it?
Sorry about that, Councillor Yeomans. I know that you had requested debate. I just missed the time of starting. Would you like just to repeat the question?
Okay, so in essence, back in June, we agreed, and what was moved, it was carried, that the revenue even though of the rebate being removed, in other words, the ratepayers are paying that now, that was going to be required to be quarantined for CWMS purposes only.
Yep, got it.
And in the prioritisation document, it basically says that the revenue excluding the rebate is going to be used for the CWMS service. I'm just
clarification. Is that a question we can answer? Thank you so much.
So through the mayor, all income coming into the CWMS, including the return on capital and the risk for the allowance for risk, is quarantined in the CWMS reserve. Looking at this resource prioritisation document, it looks like that sentence was left in from the prior year, which was when we rebated that aspect, and that should be removed. So it will be removed from the final version, and all of that income goes into the reserve specifically for CWMS.
So noting that this is a draft resource prioritisation document, you're suggesting that that will be removed. Does that mean that there are other pre-existing paragraphs that might need the same treatment?
Through the mayor, we will confirm that this one was the one that had the most change in terms of the treatment of CWMS income.
Thank you.
Just got one more question.
Go ahead.
And on page 335, we talk about the plant and fleet. Talks about we've got over 550 fleet assets with the value there. Talks about towards net zero emissions roadmap, 80% of our fleet will be electric or hydrogen by 2030. Might be a question you might not just I just wonder how we're tracking against that target, that's all.
So this is on page 335 or page 66 of the draft documents, and it's the first paragraph, last sentence, a question about tracking. And we might need to take that on notice if that's okay. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Dew.
Debate, please.
Debate, go ahead.
I think it's a fantastic document. One of the points of tension a little bit for me is around how we privy community voice in this side by side as community, the experts within their area. So although we have it beautifully laid out and it's measurable, I also wonder about the community voice within this at times. So I would be really interested in how that sits side by side, and if there are some innovative and creative ways that we can do both and hold both going forward.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Eaton, would you like to close debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? That motion's carried. Thank you, everyone. And just noting that we'll take that question on notice and get back to Councillor Yeomans. Item 9.7, which is the approval of extension of cash advance debenture. Councillor Platten. Councillor Platten?
Hello, I've just got a question.
Go ahead.
If I can. I'm just more for my own, for everyone's interest, why there are 3 loans and why they're not just in one?
So a question around consolidation, is that possible? Are you able to answer that, Jane?
So through the mayor, why there are 3 loans, I couldn't speak to that, but we will certainly be looking to consolidate that into the one cash advance debenture.
So it's historic and you're moving forward, okay? Do I have a mover for this item? Councillor Pritchard.
Happy to move.
Thank you.
Do I need to request that those 3 loans are consolidated as part of my movement?
I might just check with the Chief Executive for that one.
Councillor, I think if I'm sort of trying to understand the question right, the consolidation is to trying to get a more competitive rate. Is that what it's saying there?
No, I think it's just simply where I have 3 loans and we can have one.
Yeah. Yeah, so these are 3 separate facilities. If there was a question towards the value and getting a better rate, really pleased to say that the Local Government Finance Authority is our main banker and they provide incredibly competitive rates despite how it's split up. I'd also say that just today they've actually been very quick to pass on
the official cash rate change of 25 basis points, which is really encouraging for us. Have you got anything to add to that, Jade?
So through the mayor, I would probably recommend that in recommendation 2 that we note the continuation of the cash advance debentures consolidating into one facility. I think that would address your question, Councillor Patton.
So Councillor Pritchard, do you wish to
So we're going to add that to.
so approve the continuation and consolidation?
Yep.
Would that do that? So that after the word, sorry, no, in item in 2, sorry, Sue, approve the continuation and consolidation. I mean, I think that achieves the objective and it's doable. Okay. You satisfied with that? Yep. So yeah, everyone's nodding. Very good. Do you wish to speak to the motion, councillor?
Only to say that I think the report talked about why we would maintain this as a variable loan rather than a fixed loan, and I think all of the points in that are valid. And then even the decision of today sort of just supports that even further. So I think that the information in the report provides enough reason for us to continue on with this. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Patton.
Happy to second.
Thank you. Do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Pritchard, do you wish to close? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jade. The delegations update. Councillor Eaton.
So I've got an amendment, if we could put that up.
Yes, 9.8. So this is starting page 409.
That's correct.
And is it what's highlighted in the yellow? Is that correct?
That's exactly right. What it does is align us with what happens in the Barossa conservation area as well. And I think it also helps to take into account the details that were provided to us in an email from people that were wanting to do a deputation. So I think that at this stage, it aligns us with a council that has a similar arrangement to what we've got to require, and I think at some stage in the future we'll get a decision by the Planning Commission and we can review it after that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Patton.
Yes, happy to second.
Wish to speak?
Maybe just to note how important the character preservation area is in McLaren Vale, and from my perspective, I would hate to see that change. So I totally understand why this has been taken out in this context and look forward to its support.
Thank you. Councillor Bell, question or debate?
Just debate, thank you. Mayor, very briefly, just to say that I support the motion. Thank you for Councillor Eden for making that suggestion. I think in the long term, we can review it later once the government has made a decision. I've spoken to a number of line makers, particularly in Kangaroo, for example, where there's been an issue with some possible changes to the character preservation or impacting on the character preservation in that area. And we're very concerned about any changes and they are very worried that, any change might lead to the value of the area and impact on the whole road heritage listing of the area. There's also the land care groups that have spoken to me and highlighted that they can remember 20 years ago how difficult it was to protect the area, which is also the water underground, but also the trees. And many of them can still remember people blasting the trees with dynamite. So I just wanted to leave you with that. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Bell. I too can remember that. Councillor Eaton, are you willing to close debate?
Yeah, we've got the only final thing I'd like to say. I did make mention that we had Julia Grant mentioned in part of the documentation of our staff. If we want to make sure that our documentation is current. So, and I've assumed that that's going to be taken out. Thank you. I've got the document.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you, everyone. 9.9, elected members electronic media 485, and we do have an update.
Thank you through the mayor. Just on page 495 of everyone's council agenda, the section that refers to relevant legislation and references. I note there we have the Code of Conduct for council members. That was actually replaced by the behavioural standards for council members during the LGA reform in 2021. So should council approve this policy this evening, that will be amended. And thank you so much. Councillor Wilkes.
Yes, can I please move a subsequent motion? I've provided it to Sue.
So is this the one that's on our screen?
Yeah, so the one in front of you. All I've added in there is that we don't adopt it tonight. We hold an optional workshop to discuss the changes. The reason I made it optional, so I'll enter into debate now.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I saw this and started reading through it and saw quite considerable changes, I felt, for me. And I thought that this could be a little bit of a learning process, but also would like some of the changes in here to be explained. I could go into them further into detail, but I know not everyone's on social media and it probably doesn't affect you as much, which is why I made the workshop optional. I would really like my fellow elected members to support me in this so I can have guidance and clearance from staff about what all of the changes mean.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Eaton.
Yes, I'm certainly supporting this. I felt that there are some issues that are in there that we need to discuss. I mean, for example, an email that I might send as a consequence of a elected members inquiry requires me to actually put a clause in there that is not necessarily the agreement of council. You know, where I'm actually representing what the administration and advice have provided us. But I think that it's important that this gives everybody the opportunity to sit down and discuss it and get a better understanding and put their views up, and that might influence any changes that might occur. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Themeliotis, a question or debate?
I'm going to start with some questions.
Go ahead.
I just want to understand sort of what triggered the updates to the policy. Was there a legislative change, something that came through the LGA?
Through the chair, all the above and more. So the policy was due for review in every council term. So the original policy was developed in 2019. And so obviously since that time, social media has changed. We've had the local government reform. So there's been changes there, and also in relation to the behavioural management for council members. So we did, as noted in the report, we did review other councils within South Australia, New South Wales, and we also looked at some major companies that have social media policies as well. But the main changes under social media came from Local Government Act, the Behavioural Management Policy, and also LGA social media recommendations.
Okay, no problems at all. And with in the background where it says who we consulted with or who we talked to, was there any discussion around actually having a conversation with elected members who would be directly affected by this policy?
Through the chair, we did run this through our social media team, and we also noted a copy to the mayor for consideration.
But there was no discussion around elected members?
Not at that time, no.
Okay. All right, perfect. I will go into a little bit of debate. Elected members, so today I get a phone call from the ABC saying, hey, can you come on and speak about something? We just want to have a little chat to you today, a quick segment. And I took a moment and I thought about this agenda item, and then I became a little bit unsure of myself if I could actually go on and speak and making sure I followed the correct process. Now, I'm not the lead of council. I'm not the lead communication of council. Everything is directed through the mayor and the CEO. Absolutely understand that. And I understand this policy is, I guess, a bit of tightening up, a little bit of cleaning up. But there's elements in this policy that I think are going to become a bit of an issue. One of them, Councillor Eaton has mentioned. Now, I know it says suggested that elected members put that this is their own personal opinion and not that of council. Now, obviously, that's not going to work for an elected member inquiry when I'm saying your pothole is going to be fixed and then saying, well, that's a suggested opinion of mine. It's not a suggested opinion of mine. That's what council's doing. They're going to fix your pothole. And then when I go further down, it's around the use and deactivation of elected members' accounts. So that's not an account that's run by council. That's not an account that's owned by council. That's not an account that council have done any work to, unless council are going to take over all of our social medias and do on sharing and take that. And that would be so much of a blessing, because that is a lot of hard work. But that doesn't happen. So that's my social media account that's got my face all over it. So my intellectual property, and I own it. And a lot of us elected members have signed up to, I think it's BROLI or whatever system the LGA want us to sign up to. So everything is captured through a system. But deactivating it when I leave council, I guess I'm looking at former councillors who have left and gone on to other things and still utilise their social media and have just changed their name. I understand if as soon as I leave those doors and this is all said and done, I'm no longer an elected member, so that title disappears. And I accept that. But the comments and things that I put on my page are my own, and I believe in those comments. If I continue to run that page as a local community advocate or shut that page down, that should be a decision for myself. And then I sort of questioned a bit further that when it comes to elections and the positions are vacant, what happens in that process? Do I then have to shut down my account and start a little side hustle campaign page, or can I use this elected member page? So in here, I'm not, there's some things I'm not clear about, and there's some things I'm a little bit concerned about when people are reaching out to me for comment or an opinion on what I can and can't say. And then on further advice that I got today, it sort of strengthened my concern that if I was to say anything that would maybe offend another elected member, then that would open me up to a code of conduct. And that again made me think, well, then there's no way I can participate in a radio interview, because I'm going to be asked questions that are not pre-staged, and I don't have talking points in front of me. I'm just speaking to what my residents have told me, what I've heard out in the community. So for me, I would love to join Councillor Wilkes, not only in supporting this motion, but having a bit more of a discussion so I can understand where the LGA is heading, because the council, when I first started to now, has drastically changed with the utilisation of social media and videos and all different mediums, how I can sort of influence this policy and work within the guidelines that the LGA are suggesting.
Thank you. Councillor Platten, question or debate?
Just a couple of questions, if I can.
Go ahead.
I am just piggybacking off of Councillor Themeliottis around the use of words in the phrases and what the implications are. So words like suggested, words like elected members' social media accounts should be deactivated. So I'm just wanting to know what the purpose of those phrases in there is, if we're not actually held to account to them. If we are held to account, what are the ramifications of not abiding by that?
Go ahead.
Okay, and through the Mayor, I guess in terms of elected members deactivating their account, late last year we held a social media session with Tracy Ritter from KELLAWAY Jones, and also a presentation from Bobby Jean around social media, the use of BROLI. Do elected members use a personal account? Do they use a business account for social media? So from that perspective, it was suggested that elected members use a business account. So as Councillor Themeliottis has mentioned, if it's a business account and you're no longer an elected member, I guess that paragraph that's suggesting that elected members should deactivate their account, go back to a personal account from that. That was the perspective that I understand the LGA looking at.
Yeah, I might just clarify some of those things. I hear what you're saying. I think there's a lot of language that's pretty loose, even dare I say it here, because social media is a fast-paced, changing aspect. I certainly have raised questions around just naming different platforms, for instance. What we name may not be there tomorrow, and what might be named tomorrow might be called something else next week. So I'm just clarifying that, not offering a direction, but I think that might assist your earlier question, Councillor. Councillor Wilkes.
Excellent. I just have a question. So, councillor Themeliotis.
So you can't debate, you have to have a question.
That's what I said.
Yeah, I know, I just want to make sure that you ask a question.
That's what I started with. I'm going to start with.
So off you go, ask a question.
Okay, so councillor Themeliotis talked about who you consulted. When you look at the stakeholders for the document control, it says communication and engagement elected members. So we are the sort of the people that's going to affect. We're the only identified stakeholders. And I was just wondering why we weren't briefed and where was the communication there?
Yep. You want to take that?
Yeah. Through the chair, as I mentioned, we did run this past the mayor and our social media team. There's always the opportunity for elected members when the agenda goes out to ask questions prior. Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Wilkes, do you wish to close debate? Okay, we'll put the motion. All those in favour, so the ones right in front of you. Thank you. Against? As carried. Thank you. Look forward to that workshop. Okay, we are now on item 9.10, 497, if you're following along. There's no updates, no? Okay, do we have someone to move the first item, 9.10? Councillor Platten.
Happy to move it.
Thank you. Do you wish to speak to the motion?
I do actually. Just to say that council has quite a considerable amount of land that isn't used particularly well. And in this scenario, certainly I think it was set aside eventually to be built on. And there's quite a large section of land in there that's being built on. So I am supportive of it, and I look forward to everyone else being too.
Thank you. Councillor Eaton, question or seconding it?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Wish to speak?
Yeah, it's just a good reflection on the time that it actually takes. And even when we look at properties coming up that we're going to consider, we won't be disposing of them in this term of council. It'll be the next term and probably halfway through or towards the end of it. That's a process that we need to quicken up a little bit, I think.
Thank you. Councillor Wilkes, question?
Okay, no, I have some comments that I'd like to make.
We'll treat that as a debate.
Yes, debates, please. Comments a debate. Okay, so when I got this one, I was like, okay, it's in my patch, awesome. So I looked through the report, which was quite small, and then I noticed that the community consultation happened in February 2019 on the 19th. So I looked up that council meeting and I went through the report and I realised that 6 residents had given their feedback and they were all happy for it to be revocated at that stage. So I thought, you know, that was a big process. And I just thought if we are going to have parcels of land come up, when we do the report, if you could just put a tiny little snapshot of what that community engagement was in the outcome, that would have, you know, it would have saved a lot of internet searching, but that's okay. But so I just wanted to put that little.
Thank you. No further questions. Councillor Platten, just to close. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you very much. And to your point, Councillor Eaton, yes, we do hope these things will speed up, and I have advocated to that effect to others. Disposal of land for 9.11. Councillor Eaton.
Yes, look, I'll support this. I've already debated in the other case and it reflects what I was saying there. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for this? Councillor Greaves.
Yes, happy to second. Thank you.
Any questions? Debate? Councillor Eaton. Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Item 9.12. So this is the land at Candover Crescent, Huntfield Heights. Councillor Byrne.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'll move.
And
just briefly to acknowledge that I looked up, as Councillor Wilkes mentioned, that I looked back in 2018 and 2019 to have a look at the your say that was done at the time. And I've acknowledged that obviously at the time there were 32 landholders, for example, notified together with newspaper advertising, etc. And I'm satisfied that the engagement was fully conducted, and we're at the next stage.
Thank you.
Obviously.
Thank you. Councillor Greaves.
Thank you. Happy to second.
Thank you. Any questions? Any further debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you, everyone. That's a great step forward for future generations. We have the council committee and reporting schedule. Councillor Eaton.
Yes, I'll read as written. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Themiolotis.
Happy to second.
Any questions, debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. I'm just noting the time. It is 8:30. I'm wondering if people are happy to keep moving or whether they would like a break. Keep moving? Okay, let's keep going. The questions on notice. I'll need a motion to keep going, apparently. Councillor Platten.
I'd like to move a motion that we keep going, please.
Councillor Wilkes. I'm happy to second. Thank you. All those in favour? Against? Thank you. Let's keep going. And I don't know if there is a keep going motion, but let's call it that. All the questions on notice, I believe, have been answered, either in your agenda or on your desks. And we are now up to the motions on notice. 11.1, Councillor Themiolotis. And I just need to check if there are, before we begin this, if there are any conflicts of interest that need to be attended to.
I guess we need to see if there's any nominations or this motion is really not useful.
So, Councillor Themiolotis, are you going to move the motion as it is, and then, or would you like to invite interest?
I would like to nominate Councillor Mick Fisher, but he's not here, so I don't know how it can at least be communicated with him that.
Yep.
And
is there any other? Is there anyone else who's willing to be on this as a nominee? Councillor Davis. Any further names?
Okay, happy to move it.
And so, Councillor Davis, I'm not sure if you've got a conflict of interest. You have because conflict of interest is, and I'll just get Karen to explain it better than me probably, but it's whether there is a benefit or a negative, a deficit of equal or separate. Would you like just to say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, you may wish to consider declaring a material conflict of interest. While there's no actual financial benefit for you, there may be a personal benefit in able to attend the conference. It's for you to consider.
Sorry, let me just give you the, yep, go ahead.
I have a material conflict of interest because I could benefit from this, so I'll leave the chamber.
Yeah, and there is a form that you'll need to give to Sue. Okay, where are we up to? Councillor Themiolotis, did you wish to speak to this motion?
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Elected members, when we had the previous motion that came to the chamber, I felt really unresolved after that motion. There wasn't the reliever, someone was going to bring a motion up, but nothing sort of happened. And I've reflected over time of what necessarily went wrong, and maybe it was a bit of a timing thing for me, because my debate was very odd and not very well timed, because the federal election would be well and truly done by the time we send elected members up. So maybe in future, if this is closer to the time of attending, it maybe would have opened up opportunities for elected members to see the budget and where we're at, and have a couple of budget workshops, and that might alleviate some of the concerns of elected members. I will say in previous chambers, we've sent multiple elected members pretty much every year. And the CEO did mention at the last council meeting, like, this is he didn't say this, creme de la creme of elected member events. This is the one thing. You didn't exactly say that. I'm adding a couple of extra words there, but said that this is the event that's catered to elected members. What I don't want to send, the message I don't want to send around this chamber is one, that I don't want you to represent us, because I do. and I don't trust that you have the ability to go represent us, and that I don't support you going along with our mayor as a, I don't know if Councillor Grieve said a team or sent a gang of elected members advocating on local issues and representing our council. I do want to send you, and I do want to give elected members the opportunity. I sort of tossed and turned with this a little bit because I questioned, when does this start and when does this stop? Because we do have a bucket that allows elected members to utilise it for training purposes. That's why we have it. And I know a new chamber could come in, and all of a sudden we're sending 3, 4, 5 elected members paid for by council. So we have to sort of make a decision here where we cut the line and where this starts and where this stops. This is really brought up because I want to share with you that I do want elected members to take opportunities where they're put out there to represent our council area. And I know that there are elected members who genuinely wanted to put their hand up at the last council meeting, and I felt they felt bad or guilted into not wanting to have a bad look on this council, but is representing our communities and showcasing our council and trying to bring more into our council area. If it's business, if it's interest from federal politicians, whatever it would be, is that a negative or is that part of our role? So elected members, I hope that you would support Councillor Fisher and Councillor Davis. And if Councillor Fisher changes his mind, that's fine. But Councillor Fisher and Councillor Davis representing our chamber and going up with the mayor and the CEO and representing our council, advocating on issues that we find important to us, putting up notices of motion, networking, building relationships and bringing interest back into our council area.
And Councillor Platten, are you seconding the motion?
I'd very much like to second it.
And would you like to speak?
Yes, I'd love to. This feels like deja vu. Here we are, Conference 2.0. Certainly I reflect the sentiments that I think each and every one of you is very capable, and I'm very happy for you to represent me and the City of Onkaparinga. It's not just my decision, but I don't think a financial decision should impact a decision for you to go to a conference if that's what you think you would like to do, and certainly you should be allowed to represent. And I think that this notice of motion gives us an ability to endorse elected members that wish to attend the LGA conference. So I'll be voting for it.
Thank you. Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to support the motion and highlight how important this part of the motion is, because anyone who wants to go does need to be an endorsed delegate to attend the first 4 days. So you can't attend unless you're a delegate and supported by your council. You can go on the last day, and elected members and council staff can go on the last day, and it's free. But the first 4 days, you must be a delegate. So this process is really important. And so that's how I was able to attend, only because the motion was brought back last year. So I thank you for doing that at the time. It is disappointing, obviously, not to be supported financially. That's how it is at the moment, and I hope it won't be like that in the future. I think it's important that we do, or some of us do, attend and take turns attending. It's important in a leadership role that we play to be seen. It's important for our council that we're seen and represented. We've got a lot to share, and we've got a lot to learn from other councils as well. So it was, I highly recommend it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Eaton.
Yes, look, I'll support it. However, the other matter that I wish to raise is you actually get an opportunity to attend the South Australian Local Government Association meetings and AGMs, and I've attended all of them ever since I've been an elected member, and avoid the cost. You don't go to the dinner, right? And what you're dealing with there, of course, are your co-councillors in other council areas working in the same environment that you are, under the same legislation, and it helps to see what's occurring. And not a lot of you have attended them in the last 2 years, to be quite honest, and I encourage you to put your hand up to go along. All it is a trip into town, not even paying the bus fare or anything like that.
Thank you. Councillor THEMELIOTIS, do you wish to close?
Yeah. Oh. Okay, yeah. Thank you, councillor Egan, for your service. Elected members, I think the only thing I can add is this motion is going to come up every year. We're going to have this same interesting debate. So maybe next time when this motion comes up, we have multiple options there to allow elected members who genuinely just want to attend and be an elected member can freely put it up and not feel bad about wanting to represent their council.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. And perhaps, Councillor THEMELIOTIS, you might like to communicate that to Councillor Fisher. I will as well, but you may like to do that. Item 11.2, short-term accommodation. I'm not sure, Councillor Jew, you happy to? There we go, Councillor. Oh, sorry, you're getting Councillor Davis. Could you just let Councillor Davis know? Thank you. Sorry about that confusion. Your item, are you moving your item?
I would like to, please.
Go ahead.
So short-term stay accommodation, I will tell you that I was in the car listening to the radio and I heard that there was a select committee on short-term stay accommodation and Councillor Yeomans and I have residents in our area that are concerned about the number of Airbnbs and et cetera, that are along our coastline. But I'm sure other wards could relate as well, given the beauty of our whole region for tourism. And so while I was listening to the radio, the person that was being interviewed actually took aim at councils and blamed them for not following planning processes. And I thought that was a little bit interesting and that it was important that we also have a seat at the table and that it's not necessarily just a state perspective that's included, but given we are the largest metropolitan council and we would also have insight into what are the pros and cons, challenges, opportunities that are out there, that it's important that our council has a voice. And thought by initiating this process, it would allow staff enough time to develop a position and make a submission on council's behalf, taking into consideration the views of our residents as well and looking at what we are noticing are the trends for our region and how that might inform potential state legislation in the future. So, yes.
Okay. Councillor Platten, a question or seconding or debating?
I'd like to second it if I can.
Go ahead.
And I'll move into debate. I recollect a long time in the past, I think I asked some quans about this, and it's certainly something that I've thought long and hard about. Airbnbs, I think we listened to the same radio show potentially. There were some statistics that came out around participants in the Tour Down Under, and the vast majority of them were staying in Airbnbs as their choice of accommodation. I certainly think that as an accommodation mix, we have some regions that are really lacking in accommodation, like McLaren Vale, for example, which are also high tourism areas. And without Airbnb or other models, I think that it may be harder to get accommodation down there. Having said that, there is an increase in accommodation from traditional accommodation providers and wineries. I think that there are some concerns with me around Airbnb that potentially they don't have to follow the same standards as a hotel or an accommodation provider. That is a piece of the pie when it comes to residential properties. These are houses that would have been long-term rent or owned by people that are now taken off that market and put onto accommodation, which is short-term. It concerns me that in my block alone, there's at least one that I know of, and if you extrapolate that across the community, it would be interesting to know in the submission how many houses are taken offline for long-term use. We also have homelessness issue, along with many other councils. In fact, I would say probably all councils in the metropolitan area have issues with homelessness. That concerns me. Back to the fact that it is probably a small piece, but I think it is a piece that we need to consider. I think that a submission will be able to look at both pros and cons of having short-term stay accommodation, and I'd be very keen to see it. So thank you.
Councillor Drew, is it a question we've got? So there are other questions, so I'm just checking. Councillor Wilkes.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to let the chamber know as well that there is actually a lot happening in this space, and the mayor and I attended the Adelaide Coastal Council the Australian Coastal Council conference, and they had as their showcase piece the information. They had someone talking about how Airbnb are affecting certain areas, and they've actually commissioned a report that was finalised and delivered at the conference, which really highlights the effects that it's having on those towns. Most of them were in the eastern states, and there was a few in the western states. There was nothing in South Australia, but I just wanted to know if you really wanted to look a little bit further into it, there is that report floating around as well.
Thank you. Thanks for that information. Councillor Drew, do you wish to close debate?
Just quickly, just that, like Councillor Patton said, housing is multifaceted, and currently City of Onkaparinga are prioritising the work through the housing strategy that we're currently undertaking. So in essence, this is a piece of probably that pie as well. It's another way that we're advocating up. So I hope you can support this motion.
All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Councillor Wilkes, item 11.3.
Thank you. This is just in addition to the mayor's report. I just wanted to just read a little bit of information about Artie, a former councillor, and then just say a couple of comments. So Artie served the people of Onkaparinga for 22 years and demonstrated a tireless commitment to improving the lives of all residents and championed numerous causes during his elected time. His work within council was marked by his genuine passion for community service, his willingness to listen to the concerns of his constituents, and his dedication to making Onkaparinga a better place. His legacy will live on in a park at Christie's Downs, and his wife very excitedly told me how much Artie loved driving past that park, loved seeing what they were doing, liked knowing when it was being mowed, and actually was very proud that the council had acknowledged him in that way. I had the pleasure to meet Artie a couple of times. One of them was at the original open market celebration. He was a lovely guy. I really liked him, and his wife was a truly beautiful person. And then in his time and since his passing, I've actually spoken to some staff and some community members, and they've all just said he was just a top all-round great bloke. So just thought we would acknowledge him with a motion as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Greaves.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I too would like to say a few words about Artie. Back in 2002, when I was first elected to this chamber, there were 21 of us around the table, and we had wards of 4 members. I was privileged to be a part of Knox ward then. Artie Ferguson, Alan Oakes and Doreen Irwin and myself were the 4 representatives. And it was as a first-time councillor, it was a very interesting experience. But reflecting on the sort of experience that people like Artie bring or brought to the chamber, you know, as somebody who was in their mid-30s at the time, you know, having somebody like Artie who was so passionate, so loud, so opinionated, and these are all from a positive perspective, nothing negative about it. You know, Artie was a great part of that team, and I too would just like to acknowledge his contribution. And certainly the contribution of his wife to the community as well. Great salt of the earth people, and Artie will be very, very hard to replace. And just like to acknowledge him in this place. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wilkes, did you wish to suppose? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? So that was seconded by Councillor Greaves. Yeah. And I know I did let Julie know that we were doing this tonight, and hopefully she and her family will watch the video and enjoy hearing those stories about him. You also will have received from our office information about his memorial service, which will be next month, and you're very welcome to share that information with others. They've got a provision with the group that are organising that service to leave messages, and so there may be people who you already know or are connected to that might also want to leave a personal anecdote on that digital record that their family for generations will be able to use as well. So thank you for that. We now have a petition from the traffic calming of Brown Road. And I'm just checking there's no update. There is an update. Okay, go ahead.
Through the Mayor, we've had a letter from the member for Raynell, Katrina Hilliard MP. A copy was sent to you over email, and there is a hard copy in your folders.
Thank you very much. So someone to move, Councillor Wilkes.
Yes, I'll move it as written, please.
Thank you. And speak to it.
Yeah, sure. So thank you. So Sue was actually here this afternoon. Sorry, not this afternoon, this evening. She's subsequently left, but she does really appreciate the fact that a report will be collated for us to investigate and consider in April 2025, and she is planning on doing a deputation. This stretch of road is notorious. It comes from the very, very busy Dyson Road, and there's 2 or 3, debatable, but I would say 3 schools in between, and it's really kind of hard to go around. So many people drive down that road. So I'm really interested to see the figures that come back in the report, and I hope that we can do something to support the residents.
Thank you, Councillor Platten.
Yes, happy to second.
Do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, please, just briefly. I think it takes a considerable amount of effort to go and do a petition, to put yourself out there as a resident and to go and seek support for your ideas. So I'm certainly supportive of having a report back to council, and I hope that everyone is too.
Thank you. Councillor Pritchard, question or debate?
Just a question.
Okay.
With regards to a report around this particular road, how does it take into effect what the change in Brown Road would do to the surrounding road? So in terms of this, I look and I think, well, if you close that one or you put some traffic measures on there, then Colbert Road, which looks like it does almost the same thing, will then receive all of this traffic. So how do we manage the impacts on further roads when we do a report like this?
And you can take that on notice or put it into the report, but if you'd like to speak.
Good. Mayor, we can use some data that we collect, and some historical data we've collected across the road network in adjoining areas to form a traffic model. We can do a technical assessment of the impact and model that out through the local area. It might be a little bit of a large amount of work to produce for the Apple report, but we can certainly include some high-level assessments from a road network modelling perspective for you.
You wish to speak to close, Councillor Wilkes? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Any urgent business? Councillor Jew? Sorry, there's a number of things that are happening here.
That's okay. I'd like to raise a matter that I've sent through to Sue. So I'm raising this matter as urgent business because it wasn't visible to the working group prior to the agenda, and given the money is required for the documents to be developed that are required within the council permit process, March would not give adequate time for that to take place, and therefore I see it as urgent business.
Okay, so so the point you're making was that it wasn't visible to you prior to the agenda coming out, and the working group hadn't had a chance to look at it.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So council members, I'll just read this to you. So I'm proposing that council allocates up to 5,300 to Wollonga RSL to assist in the Anzac Day services the club supports held at Aldinga. What I'm asking for tonight is an extension of our reach. As a chamber, we pause grants, but we retain the arrangements for 3 RSLs for continued funding. They were McLaren Vale, MORPHETT Vale and Port Noarlunga. At the time, all RSLs were given the opportunity to apply for grants. What's unique in this situation is that Aldinga only came online because of an investment from the government and us to move and relocate the Aldinga Memorial to a location. And without an RSL in Aldinga, Wollonga have kindly taken the group on as a subcommittee. Aldinga, has only been recently incorporated as subcommittee. Wollonga RSL would normally be eligible for funding from council, but because we haven't actually had a grants round, it's a unique situation where they weren't able to apply for our grants. The funding requested by Wollonga RSL is partly due to council's permit process, which at the time of application, you must include public liability in a traffic management plan, which the public liability is approximately $800 and $1,700 for traffic management. The group also require sound equipment, which equates to $2,800. These services taking place in Aldinga due to council and state government investment in the relocation. It's anticipated that about 1,500 people will attend this year, and the community is completely community-led. It incorporates groups like the Residents Association, the local church, sporting clubs, RSL Wollonga, local residents, and Councillor Yeomans and I support the group too. We support the group in the capacity of we're not affiliated with the RSL Wollonga, we're not members of the RSL, we're there to support the residents in the work that they're endeavouring to do. You might be sitting here thinking, has the group explored options for funding elsewhere? The answer is yes. In fact, federal government funding allocates RSLSA with the funding and RSLSA then distribute the money. So when applications are from bigger RSL clubs, it's more likely that they're going to receive the money. So Wollonga is unfortunately really not successful in those situations. I also don't think it's appropriate to expect Wollonga RSL to self-fund, as this takes away funding opportunities that should be directly allocated to veterans. Again, this is not new money. If we rewinded time or we fast-forwarded time, I'm sure council would find and support this. Unfortunately, it's a timing thing, and in order for the Anzac Day service to go ahead at Wollonga RSL, they need our support.
Councillor Pritchard, are you? Second, go ahead.
And also just one question, how does Wollonga RSL fund their Anzac Day service? Can I ask that first?
Oh, sorry.
So as you'd be aware, they're not on a facility that requires a permit process, and they also are self-sufficient in that they have their PA system set up, and they don't need to do a traffic management plan because it doesn't affect any roads surrounding them.
Thought it went onto main road sometimes, but that's all right. Or don't tell council that. Thank you, Ryan, and Councillor Dew for bringing this to our attention. I think this is an appropriate way to fund this RSL. I think it creates a fairness with regards to RSL events that are held on council facilities or land. I would like to also acknowledge the work that you and Councillor Yeomans and a number of others are working on with regards to how we can fund RSL events, specifically Anzac Day and Remembrance Day, going forward without having to look at public liability and permit funding from our group. So the work that the council is doing with regards to these events going forward, hopefully will make this a one-off in a good way that we can find a better way of doing this in the future. Happy to support.
Councillor Patton, a question or debate?
Question, please. You can take this on notice if you don't have the information, but do we have any information on previous grants being given to Wollonga RSL, and maybe in the last grant process or the one before?
To Wollonga.
Wollonga, sorry.
Yeah.
Yep.
Are you able to answer?
Through the chair, not Wollonga, just MORPHETT Vale, Port Noarlunga and McLaren Vale in the previous grant round.
Okay, thank you. And again, happy to take it on notice if you need, but do you know of any other RSLs that run Anzac Day services that we don't support financially?
Within the council?
Within the council.
Through the chair, I'd need to take that on notice.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Eaton.
Yes, I'll support this, but I think we also need to take into account there are a range of other Anzac Day services that are held, particularly in the northern part of the city of Onkaparinga. We have one that's held at the War Memorial adjacent to the Weymouth Oval and the Coromandel Community Centre. We have another one at Cherry Gardens, which is run by the Cherry Gardens Association, but it has a support from the Blackwood RSL, same as what happens at Coromandel Valley. And of course, at Clarendon, there's another one that's occurred that requires the road to be closed, and the Community Association in Clarendon meet all the cost of that. And then on top of that, we actually have a dawn service put together by the Flagstaff Scout Group just off Flagstaff Road in a reserve there as well. Doesn't require main roads, but these other organisations are doing it at their own costs. Okay, we give a little bit of support in respect to what happens at Coromandel Valley. The others are doing it on their own, and that needs to be considered in the big picture of how we support them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Greaves.
Thank you. I do have a couple of questions, and this may be to Councillor Dewar or to staff. The quantum of $5,300, if you're talking about public liability and road traffic, doesn't add up to that much. Could I just get some clarification around why that amount?
Councillor Dewar, you might be to assist with some of that information.
So there's the item of
Oh, sorry.
If I tell the whole story, it might help. The group, because it's a community-led group, they can't have public liability, and council requires external public liability to provide for permits. So they've got the support of Aldinga Business and Tourism Association, who only have 400 people allowed in attendance for their current public liability. So there's an additional $800 they need to provide to increase it to $1,500. So that's one outlay. The other outlay is the sound system that will be required and the hiring of that. And then thirdly, it's the traffic management plan, which alone is about it's $1,700.
So it actually, the total amount is $5,300 deducted on the event.
Correct.
Okay. Look, I'm happy to support this. But I think I do reflect on what Councillor Pritchard has also said in that, you know, this is a bit of an outlier. Obviously, Wollonga Rec Park has put on the event every year. It is on their land now, so obviously their costs are minimal in terms of putting that on. I'm glad that they're actually coming in and supporting Aldinga. For many, many years, the residents of Aldinga all trooped down to Wollonga in the morning, and it was a fantastic event. But great that we actually have something now for remembrance at the Aldinga space. I guess my only back step on this is, given all of our work around our budgets, this is very reminiscent of, I guess, what other previous chambers have done, and that is bring great ideas, really needy ideas to the chamber, and it's like, okay, well, that's a great idea, we'll fund that. Or the next one's going to be a great idea and we're going to fund that. And soon we find ourselves coming out of step with the decisions we've made around our future budgets. So I guess that's just a little bit of a red flag. I would like to see something come forward through our grants program about how we actually do fund some of these important events each year, whether or not it's through some ongoing funding or whether or not there's some specific grants allocated to that. But look, you know, really pleased that that Aldinga has actually got their own event happening now. And look, you know, I'm happy to support it at this point.
Thank you. Councillor Yeomans.
Just a quick debate, again, obviously support this, and the brutal reality is if we aren't funding this through the council, it'll be funded either through the RSL or through small business, which I'm not sure we really would want that to occur either. I just see this, as Councillor Dewar explained, as a bit of an extension of the existing grant program where there was the exemption that we all agreed upon where the RSLs would receive the grant funding. given that we paused the grant funding and had this situation been in place with the sub-branch being part of Wollonga, at that point, I'm sure that this would have been captured in the first place. So we're sort of, I guess, undoing a little bit what could have happened and what probably will be happening down the track. I also note the comments from Councillor Greaves and Councillor Eaton too, and it just sort of gives way to an opportunity to really have a good look at the way that these RSL events are being run from an operational perspective. It seems really unfair that RSLs are having to fund this. I think at that meeting that we attended, the VALE Arms suggested it was around that $12,000 to $15,000 that they're actually contributing out of their funds that probably should be going to the welfare of our returned soldiers. Is actually going to fund an event that is essentially a community event. And that sort of process is replicated with other councils where they actually look after and manage the operational aspect of these events. And I just think that's something that I'm very keen to talk to staff and progress. And this is probably an opportunity to actually open that conversation up as well. So thanks for the contributions, and I really hope we support this this motion.
Thank you, Councillor THEMELIOTIS.
Just some questions. Can I just get an idea of how much funding we provided other RSLs, and if this is in line or the same sort of ballpark?
Yeah, through the chair, we have a tiered approach. For events with anywhere up to 2,000 people, we've awarded up to $2,000 in funding. For those up to 5,000 people attending, up to $5,000 funding. And for those with up to 5,000 people or over attending, is $8,000 funding.
So how did that relate to the RSLs from, which I think is the question?
Yes, so from that funding tier, MORPHETT VALE with their large attendance, I think they got $7,900 funding.
Okay.
Port Noarlunga got $8,000 funding, and McLaren VALE received $5,000 funding.
Okay. And what's the expected attendance for the Wollonga RSL to be held at Aldinga? What's the expected attendance there?
Councillor Ju, are you able to help with that?
Baseline probably 1,500. There was over 1,000 in attendance for the first one, and given this year it's a Friday, we anticipate there'll be holiday makers and other people, which will increase.
Okay, all right, no problems at all. And then just in relation to the sound system, I think I roughly heard 2,000 something to hire. Can I just confirm if that's the cost, and if that is a hire cost or a purchase cost?
It's a higher cost.
My God.
So there was actually a quote for 7,000, so it's much lower than. And see, this is now I'm getting part of a biggest. Maybe I should leave that for my.
I think we'll just leave that. Yeah. Thank you, Councillor. Have you got further questions?
Look, I was just curious if council had, because this is a higher cost, if council had a sound system that could be loaned to clubs. I know there's one that goes out around Australia Day. Is there one that is available?
Through the chair, for my area's major events, we also hire sound systems. We don't have one of our own.
And that sort of cost that is sort of on par with that sort of.
I would need to take that one on.
No. Sorry. No, that's fair. Look, elected members, we have made a sort of declaration that we are supportive of our RSLs and we want them to be successful. And this is one of our events that RSLs put on that our community love. And they love it because it essentially brings all the kids out in their medals, and it brings community together, and there's a lot of sharing of stories, and they're really quite amazing events that are held across our city. I do acknowledge Councillor Eaton's contribution around many groups in my area that have significant turnout to these events and who are sort of doing it themselves. And I know the look that this is going to give to those clubs who are saying, if we just had a little bit more money for those hard things, which is traffic management, which is on those things that are really hard for our clubs to do. I also know the tiered sort of system and how, so we would have endorsed a tiered system and how 1,500 sits in with the tiered system, and it doesn't. It actually would be a lot less, but then comes in that sound, the sound system. And then I listened to Councillor Greaves, and she's very right. History tells me that every time an elected member brings just one little thing, and they're all really exciting and really amazing. But then all of a sudden we creep, and then the budget starts to change and we just keep pushing in. And I've been here long enough to see that. Going back to the start, the first principle was that we support our RSLs to deliver Anzac Day services. They're of value to our community. So I will support this motion. But again, red flag with Councillor Greaves around when we start spending a little, it adds up to some of our groups. And I know this grant process will start again, and it will be a new invigorated grant process, which will provide those opportunities for our clubs. When we're having discussions with all of our clubs, we've got to speak about not just council's grant process, but things that clubs could start to do for themselves to become a bit self-sufficient and have skin in the game.
Councillor Wilkes, question or debate?
I have debate, please. Go ahead. So I'm an avid supporter of RSLs. Definitely. I just think they provide a great service and they've done many great things over their time. Was looking at or listening to what Councillor Greaves was saying and really sort of thought as well, like that whole up to 5,300 gets me a little bit. I thought because Councillor Drew's done such hard work, I think maybe I'd feel a little bit more comfortable if we actually outlined what they were going to use the money for. So that's just a suggestion. Obviously, I'm not expecting you to change it, but just for moving forward, if there is something that can pull the heartstrings and we've kept it quite plain, maybe if we do explicitly say and really make it clear cut to anyone who's looking in that it's not just up to a certain amount of money that could be for anything. We actually wrote in there what the money was for, and that money was fixed because it's based on really strong quotes, which is what you've said. I think I'd be really happy moving forward knowing that we've supported a club, an RSA that deserves it, but also showing the community that's because there's been hard work done, there's clear cut quotes that have been taken into consideration, and there's been a lot of thought into your motion. So that's just
Councillor Platten.
Thank you. I've just got another question. I was listening, but I can't remember. The tiered system, let's say that we had 2,000 people come to this event. How much funding would that attract?
Through the chair, through the previous grants process, up to $2,000. That's the cash component. There's also an option for an element of in-kind support.
And what value is that?
The last round, it was approximately around $2,000 and not over.
And we're using that rubric to fund the RSLs this time. I know we don't have grants, but we are giving the RSLs some money. Is that what we're using to work
so
that
that we
out?
exempt from the grant system. So the same policy being applied.
Yeah.
And through the chair, correct. And they were given the same amount of funding, but they were awarded last year, the year before the pause.
Yes. Okay. And is there an RSL with a similar capacity, 2,000?
Through the chair, I'd need to take that on notice. I'm not aware of McLaren Vale's figures, and they were the lowest. However, theirs would have been somewhere between 2,000 and 5,000.
Dollars.
Attendees.
Yeah. And how much did they get?
5,000.
5,000. Okay. So I've got no issue supporting.
You debate?
I am debating, yeah.
Yeah.
I've got no issue supporting RSLs. My only issue is that we are fair and equitable. So if we, and I think it's been highlighted that this could potentially attract other people that want support. I don't actually have an issue with that, but I do think we have a tiered system so that we can be fair and equitable when it comes to doling out grant funding for events. So I guess my concern is if McLaren Vale is going to come to Councillor Pritchard or Councillor Bell and say, well, we could have really done with an extra $300. So that's my concern. I have no issue with granting funding to Wollonga/Aldinga. I just want to make sure that it's fair. That's all.
And can I just clarify that, perhaps to Jean, the grant review that's on may or may not, because it has not yet come to us, have a tiered system in the future. So it may be presumptuous to us to hold that assumption.
Through the chair, that's correct.
Thank you. No further questions. Councillor Drew, would you like to close?
I would, thank you. I just wondered, taking on board what Councillor Wilkes has said, am I able to slightly adjust?
With the permission of your seconder, would you like to disclose what that is?
Powered Councillor Pritchard. I just thought it could be council allocates up to, or get rid of up to. So council allocates 5,300 for higher sound system, public liability, and thank you, traffic management. Pardon?
Public liability and traffic management.
Yeah. And I'll just quickly debate. So Councillor Platten, you'll be very happy to hear that when the RSLs came together, they talked about the value of equity, and they talked about it in the essence that it shouldn't be that everyone gets the same, that it should be a principle of justice really, and those that require more because of whatever reason that they have, the rationale they have, is fair and equitable from their perspective. So and that was quite clearly came through as a message. So also I appreciate, absolutely wholeheartedly think that everyone in this chamber would completely agree with what Councillor Greaves and others have echoed and said in relation to not setting a precedent. I think back to what I was trying to relay, and also Councillor Yeomans, around how this is a unique situation that council has found itself in, where the activation of a space and the value of a service supporting an RSL would not take place if it wasn't for council support, which didn't line up with the timeframes that occurred. So I think that it's just a matter of timing, and it's quite unique in relation the connection to the grants process. I agree with what Councillor Eaton said around how it's part of a bigger picture and a bigger story. This group is literally a community-led group with no resources backing them. Some of the other groups that have been highlighted, including sports parks and scouts and different groups, obviously have an organisation, probably with very limited resources behind them. But instead, for this group, it's literally individuals coming together to try and make something happen for the community with the support of the Wollonga RSL. So I would hate this to be a precedent setter in terms of what could come forward, but I see it's quite a unique situation, and because of our previous position around RSLs and the support of them, I feel like it has the viability to slip through this time.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? Our motion is carried. Thank you. We now move into confidential items. Do I have someone to move exclusion of the public? Councillor Platten, seconder, Councillor THEMELIOTIS. Thank you. And we now